Imagine this. It's a quiet afternoon. You're sitting alone in your living room, flipping through a book or watching your favorite show, when suddenly something feels off. Your face tingles. Your arm feels heavy. You try to speak, but the words come out slurred, tangled. You reach for the phone, but your fingers won't cooperate. You're having a stroke and no one else is there. For thousands of older adults across America, this isn't just a nightmare. It's reality. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, over 795,000 people in the United States experience a stroke every year. And what many don't realize is that a significant number of these strokes, nearly 40% for people over 60, happen when the person is completely alone. That moment of silence, of being by yourself, can become the most critical moment of your life. But here's the truth. It doesn't have to be the end. Because what you do in those first few minutes can drastically change the outcome. Research from the Johns Hopkins Medical Center found that seniors who knew exactly what to do in those early moments had a 70% higher chance of survival. And another study from the Cleveland Clinic revealed something even more astonishing. A specific action, one that takes less than 30 seconds, can increase your odds of receiving life-saving treatment by nearly 300%. That's not science fiction. That's life-saving science. This video is not about fear. It's about being prepared. It's about giving you real, practical tools you can use if the unthinkable ever happens. Today, I'm going to walk you through 7 evidence-based, potentially life-saving actions you can take if you ever experience stroke symptoms while alone. These are not complicated techniques. They are simple, clear steps, backed by some of the top medical institutions in the country. And at the end, I'll share that one phrase, the one you can say during a 911 call, that could trigger a faster emergency response and quite literally save your brain. So, before we get into it, I'd love to know, how old are you, and what state are you watching from? Go ahead and leave a comment below. We read every single one, and it helps us create content that really speaks to you. Now, let's begin. Let's begin with the very first action you can take, one that could mean the difference between life and death long before a stroke ever occurs. It starts with preparation. Creating your emergency response system before you need it might sound simple, but it's one of the most powerful steps you can take right now. You see, in a medical emergency like a stroke, every minute matters. According to data from the University of California, San Francisco, seniors who had automatic emergency systems in place, things like wearable alert devices or smartphone emergency features, were able to get help an average of 14 minutes faster than those who relied solely on dialing 911. By 14 minutes may not sound like much, but consider this. During a stroke, your brain loses nearly 2 million neurons every minute. That means those 14 minutes could spare you from losing 28 million brain cells. So here's what you can do. If you have a smartphone, whether it's an iPhone or Android, you likely already have a built-in emergency feature. On an iPhone, rapidly pressing the side button 5 times activates emergency SOS. On most Android phones, pressing the power button 5 times does the same. But here's the key, this only works if you've set it up in advance. Take a few minutes today to add your emergency contacts, include your medical ID, and enable location sharing. This allows emergency services to not only find you faster, but also access critical medical information, even if you can't speak. Now, phones are great, but they're not always within reach. That's why wearable medical alert devices are such game changers, especially for older adults. Devices like Medical Guardian, Lively, or Life Alert aren't just buttons, they're full systems. Many can detect falls automatically, monitor heart rhythms, and connect directly to emergency responders through cellular networks. This means they'll work even if you're out gardening, walking the dog, or simply moving around the house. And here's something most people don't know. Emergency responders across the country are trained to look in one specific place when entering a home. the refrigerator. That's because of something called the vial of life. It's a simple container, often just a plastic bag or pill bottle, with a printed sheet that lists your medical conditions, medications, allergies, emergency contacts, and insurance info. Keep it in your fridge door and put a sticker on the outside to alert paramedics. This one little step can shave precious minutes off your emergency care. So now that we've talked about preparation, let's talk about presence. What happens if a stroke hits and you're already alone? The second action you can take is to stay conscious and alert for as long as possible. This isn't just about staying awake, it's about actively working with your body to keep blood flowing to your brain. And science backs this up. A study from the Mayo Clinic found that stroke patients who remained conscious during the first 30 minutes had dramatically better outcomes. In fact, 65% of them achieved full or near full recovery, compared to only 32% of those who lost consciousness early on. One of the most effective techniques is to focus on controlled breathing, but not the deep breathing you may have learned in yoga class. During a stroke, deep inhaling can sometimes lower your blood pressure too much, which is dangerous when your brain is starved for oxygen. Instead, focus on shallow, steady breaths around 12 to 15 per minute. Count them in your head or even aloud. This rhythm not only helps regulate blood flow, it also keeps your brain active, giving it something to focus on. The next thing to do is adjust your body position. If you're lying down, don't stay flat on your back. Research from the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center found that elevating the head about 30 degrees improves cerebral blood flow and reduces the risk of aspiration if vomiting occurs. If you're in bed, use pillows to prop yourself up. If you're on the floor, try leaning against a piece of furniture or the wall. Your goal is a gentle incline enough so that if you look down, you could still see your feet, but not so much that your chin touches your chest. And here's a small but powerful tip: keep your eyes open and focus them on a fixed point. It could be a photo on the wall, the numbers on a clock, or even the fabric pattern on a pillow. Studies have shown that visual engagement stimulates multiple regions of the brain. Describe what you see out loud if you can. This kind of mental engagement may seem simple, but during a stroke, it can help preserve cognitive function by keeping neural pathways active. So, to recap these first two steps before anything happens, prepare your emergency tools, set up your phone, wear your alert device, and create a vial of life. And if a stroke ever strikes while you're alone, remember to breathe slowly, elevate your head, and keep your mind focused and engaged. Coming up next, we'll talk about something most people never think about during a crisis: your medications. Knowing which ones can help and which ones might actually make things worse could be the key to surviving. Let's move now to a topic that's often misunderstood but absolutely crucial: your medications. What you take or don't take in the first moments of a stroke could either help save your life or make things dangerously worse. And the truth is, most people, even those who take medications every day, don't know which ones help during a stroke and which ones could actually increase the risk of complications. Let's start with one of the most common over-the-counter medications in America: aspirin. You've probably heard that taking an aspirin during a heart attack can save your life. But what about during a stroke? Well, it depends. In the case of an ischemic stroke, which is caused by a blood clot blocking a vessel in the brain and accounts for about 87% of all strokes, chewing an aspirin can be beneficial. And I do mean chewing, not swallowing. Chewing helps the aspirin enter your bloodstream much faster, often within 5 minutes, compared to 30 minutes or more if you simply swallow it. But here's the critical part: not all strokes are caused by clots. About 13% of strokes are hemorrhagic, caused by bleeding in the brain, and taking aspirin in that case could be fatal, because aspirin thins the blood and can worsen the bleeding. So how do you know which kind of stroke you're having? Without a brain scan, you can't be 100% sure, but there are some important clues. Ischemic strokes often develop more gradually. Symptoms might start as weakness, confusion, or slurred speech that worsens over minutes or even hours. Hemorrhagic strokes, on the other hand, tend to come on suddenly, often accompanied by what patients describe as the worst headache of their life, a so-called thunderclap headache. If you're experiencing that kind of sudden, intense pain, do not take aspirin. Now let's talk about blood pressure medications. You might assume that if your blood pressure is high during a stroke, the right move would be to take an extra dose. But this is where things get complicated. During a stroke, especially an ischemic one, your body actually needs slightly elevated blood pressure to help push blood past the blockage and into oxygen-starved areas of the brain. Lowering your blood pressure too quickly can make things worse. In fact, a major study called the International Stroke Trial found that aggressively reducing blood pressure in the early stages of a stroke increased poor outcomes by 42%. That's why it's critical not to self-medicate unless a doctor tells you to do so. If you're on regular blood pressure medicine, don't skip your usual dose, but also don't take more than prescribed. And if you're on blood thinners, such as warfarin, apixaban, or rivaroxaban, this information needs to be easily accessible to emergency responders. You may not be able to speak for yourself, so carry a medical card in your wallet that lists these medications. You can also enter them into the medical ID section of your smartphone so paramedics can see it even from your lock screen. Seconds matter, and knowing your medication history could change the kind of treatment you receive. Now, from medications, let's talk about something that might surprise you: your voice. During a stroke, your ability to speak may become impaired. You might struggle to find words, or your speech may come out slurred. But here's the surprising thing. Even if you can't speak clearly, trying to talk out loud can actually help your brain. Neuroscientists at Stanford University found that stroke patients who continued attempting to speak, even when their words were garbled or incomplete, maintained better oxygen levels in language centers of the brain and had higher recovery rates in terms of speech and comprehension. The act of speaking, any speaking, activates multiple brain regions. So if you feel stroke symptoms coming on, start talking immediately. Say what time it is. Say what you're feeling. Say what you were doing when the symptoms started. Even if it's out of order, even if it doesn't make perfect sense, say it anyway. This does two things. First, it stimulates your brain. And second, it may alert others nearby or activate smart home devices. If you have an Alexa, a Google Home, or similar devices, speaking out loud, even repeating a wake word, can increase the chance of the device detecting distress and prompting help. But don't stop there. If you live in an apartment or close quarters, your voice can also be a signal to neighbors. If words won't come, make any sound you can: humming, tapping, even moaning. Keep making noise. Some paramedics have shared stories where neighbors called 911 simply because they heard strange sounds or calls for help through a shared wall. And here's a powerful technique: repeat the time and your symptoms every few minutes. For example, say, "It's 2:45. I'm having stroke symptoms." Then a few minutes later say, "It's 2:50. Still having symptoms. Still need help." This creates an audio record that can be invaluable for emergency teams and doctors later. Why? Because treatment options like TPA, the clot-busting drug, are only available within a narrow window, typically 4.5 hours from symptom onset. The more precise the timeline, the better your chances of receiving the right care in time. So remember, your voice is more than just a tool to communicate. In a stroke emergency, it's a tool for survival. Use it early, use it often, and don't be afraid of sounding strange. Your brain may thank you later. Now let's shift our focus from voice to body. Because during a stroke, the way you position your body can quietly become one of the most powerful tools you have. This isn't about comfort. It's about increasing blood flow to your brain, protecting your airway, and preventing injuries that can worsen your outcome. Research from the Australian National Stroke Foundation, which studied over 3,000 stroke patients, found that those who were placed in the proper position within the first hour experienced a 41% improvement in survival rates and a 67% reduction in secondary complications like choking or joint injuries. So what exactly is the right position? Neurologists recommend a variation of the recovery position, but with a few important adjustments just for stroke. Ideally, you want to lie on your left side, with your head slightly elevated and your weakened arm supported. This position accomplishes several critical things. First, it helps prevent your tongue from falling back and blocking your airway, something that's more likely if you lie flat on your back. Second, if you vomit or have trouble swallowing, it reduces your risk of aspirating fluid into your lungs. And third, it promotes better blood circulation to both sides of your brain. Let's talk about how to get into that position safely. If you're already sitting or standing, do not try to walk to your bed or another room. The risk of falling is too high. Instead, lower yourself to the floor gently using furniture if needed. Once you're on the floor, roll onto your left side, unless that's the side affected by the stroke. If so, roll to your right. Next, bend your top leg at the knee and rest it on the floor in front of you. This prevents your body from rolling forward. Then, use your top arm to gently prop your head up, aiming for a 30-degree angle. That's about the height of 2 stacked pillows. According to a study from the University of Heidelberg, this exact head elevation increased blood oxygen levels in the brain by 24% compared to lying flat. But be careful, don't raise your head more than 45 degrees. Too steep an angle can actually reduce blood flow. Also, pay special attention to your limbs, especially the side that's paralyzed or weak. Never let an arm hang unsupported, as that can lead to shoulder dislocation, a painful injury that's common in stroke survivors. Place a cushion or pillow under the arm to keep it level with your shoulder. For the leg, make sure it's not twisted or pinned beneath you. It should be relaxed and aligned naturally. These small adjustments might seem insignificant in the moment, but research has shown that proper limb positioning in the first hour can prevent complications that often extend hospital stays by more than a week. Now that you're physically stable, let's talk about time, because in stroke treatment, time isn't just valuable, it's everything. You may have heard the phrase, the golden hour. It refers to the first 60 minutes after stroke symptoms begin. And what you do or don't do during those 60 minutes can determine whether you fully recover or face lasting disability. But what many people don't realize is that the golden hour isn't just about calling for help, it's about what you do with each moment while you wait. So here's how to navigate those 60 minutes strategically. The moment symptoms begin, assume you're having a stroke. Do not wait to see if it gets better. In the first 5 minutes, call 911 and use the exact phrase we'll talk about in the next tip. Don't say, "I feel weird" or "something's wrong." Say, "I am having stroke symptoms." That wording can trigger a faster, more specialized response. If you're able to, unlock your front door. Turn on your porch light if it's dark. Move, if you can, to a room close to the entrance. All of these small actions can save precious minutes for first responders. Between minutes 6 and 15, focus on safety and visibility. If you have pets, secure them so they don't interfere with paramedics. Sit where you can be easily seen. If you're near a window, open the curtains. If possible, send a quick text to a family member describing your symptoms and the exact time they started. This creates a digital record that doctors can use later. From 15 to 30 minutes in, focus on preserving information. If your speech is fading, write down or record a voice memo stating when the symptoms began. Even scribbling the time on your hand with a pen can be helpful. Remember, clot-busting drugs like TPA are only effective within a 4.5-hour window. The more accurate the timeline, the more options doctors have to treat you. Finally, If 30 minutes have passed and help hasn't arrived, you might start to wonder, should I try to get to the hospital myself? The answer, in almost every case, is no. Never attempt to drive yourself, even if you think you can. Stroke symptoms can worsen quickly, and you could lose control of your vehicle. However, if a neighbor is nearby, if you've already called 911, and if the nearest hospital is within 10 minutes and has a certified stroke center, a ride might help. But this should only be a last resort. The bottom line is this: every minute counts. According to UCLA Medical Center, for every 30-minute delay in treatment, your chances of recovery drop by nearly 60%. That's why the golden hour is not just about waiting. It's about using that time wisely, making smart decisions, and preparing for help to arrive. Coming up next, I'll walk you through the most powerful technique of all, something that takes just 10 seconds but can activate a completely different emergency response system and increase your survival odds dramatically. Now we've arrived at the most important action you can take, the one that could trigger a chain of events powerful enough to save your life, even before help arrives. It's something most people overlook, but when used correctly, it can increase your chances of getting life-saving treatment by nearly 300%. This is what researchers at the Cleveland Clinic discovered when they analyzed how stroke-related 911 calls were handled across the country. They found that the very first words you speak to the dispatcher can determine the speed and type of emergency response you receive. Here's exactly what you need to say when you call 911. This is a stroke alert. I am having stroke symptoms now. When he 90, let me repeat that. This is a stroke alert. I am having stroke symptoms now. These exact words are important. Don't say, I think I'm having a stroke. Don't say, I don't feel right. Say, stroke alert clearly and confidently. Why? Because many emergency dispatch systems are designed to respond differently when they hear that specific phrase. In fact, some areas have protocols known as code stroke. When those words are used, the system activates stroke-trained paramedics, mobile stroke units, or even notifies the nearest certified stroke center before the ambulance even arrives. After saying those first words, give your exact address. Speak slowly and clearly. Then say the time your symptoms began, or if you're not sure, give your best estimate. And finally, say your age. These three details, your location, your symptom timeline, and your age, allow the dispatcher to make critical decisions that can fast-track your care. Now here's something just as important. Stay on the line even if your ability to talk starts fading. Put the phone on speaker if needed. Dispatchers are trained to listen for signs of stroke changes in your breathing, slurred speech, background noise that signals distress. Staying on the call allows them to update emergency responders in real time, giving the team on the way to you more context and helping them prepare before they even walk through your door. And if you're truly struggling to speak, focus on just 2 words, stroke and the time. Repeat them over and over, even if it sounds garbled. Trained dispatchers can recognize these keywords, even through slurred speech. That repetition becomes a lifeline. And here's one final tool. In many parts of the U.S., 911 centers can now receive text messages. So if your voice fails but you can still move your fingers, text, stroke, your address. Time symptoms started to 911. Practice this. Write it down on a note and keep it near your phone. In a moment of crisis, remembering just those few words could make all the difference. So let's take a moment to bring it all together. We've just walked through 7 actions, simple, science-backed strategies that could help you survive a stroke when you're all alone. These aren't complicated medical techniques or things that require special training. They're small decisions, small preparations, small words that, in the right moment, can change everything. From setting up your emergency contact system, to adjusting your breathing and body position, to knowing when and how to speak, even when speech is difficult. And most importantly, knowing exactly what to say when you call 911. Remember, surviving a stroke isn't just about what doctors do when you arrive at the hospital. It's about what you do in the minutes before they get there. It's about how prepared you are. And that preparation doesn't happen in panic, it happens now, while you're calm, alert, and in control. Because the truth is, 1 in 4 adults over 60 will experience a stroke at some point. And when that moment comes, you won't have time to Google instructions or search for a checklist. But what you can have is a voice that knows what to say, a phone that's ready, a body that's positioned for survival, and a mind that knows, I've trained for this. So here's what I want you to do right now. Write down that 911 phrase. This is a stroke alert. I am having stroke symptoms now. Tape it to your fridge. Save it on your phone. Say it out loud once or twice so your brain remembers how it feels to say those words. Then, check your smartphone settings. Set up emergency SOS. Add your medical information. If you don't have a wearable device, look into getting one. If you live alone, make sure your neighbors know how to help if they hear a loud sound or strange voice. Create your own plan, your own system, your own safety net. Because surviving a stroke isn't just about being lucky, it's about being ready, and you can be ready starting today. Now, before we go, I'd love to hear from you. Have you or someone you love ever experienced stroke symptoms while alone? Which of these tips surprised you the most? And which one will you commit to trying today? Let us know in the comments. We read every single one. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and share this with someone you care about. It could save a life, maybe even your own.